Hey guys, this is Adam, and the topic for today is Azure App Configuration, a service for centralization of your application configuration and feature management. So whenever you're developing desktop applications or web applications, that's the service for you. So stay tuned. As I already said, this service comes very handy whenever you're developing applications, because it allows you to have this central place to manage all the application settings or feature flags. A feature flag is something, picture this, if you have an application in production and you're rolling out new feature, you might want to implement a feature flag allowing you to either enable or disable this feature on demand. Additionally, with feature flags, you can redirect a percentage of your traffic so that only part of your application traffic will get the features enabled, while still maintaining this on and off switch for the features. These are pretty much the feature flags. An app configuration service allows you to implement those without needing to rebuild your code whenever you want to turn those on and off. So how does it work? Let's picture a classical scenario of web development where you have your app service and you're moving your JSON configuration files to something called app settings. This is a very good pattern because it allows you to separate your code from the environment configuration, and it should always be applied anyway. But imagine also a scenario where you have additional app services, and some of those app services or functions share, let's say, a SQL connection string. If you will start making changes to your SQL database, maybe changing the users, maybe changing the address of the database, you would have to change that SQL connection string on every single of those services and then plan the downtime. This, as you can imagine, might be troublesome. With this kind of scenarios, you would always want to apply a centralized place where you can actually save this connection string so that all the applications use it at the same time, but also if you change it, all can grab it from the single place. And that place can be your app configuration service, where you're gonna put your SQL connection string and then connect all your applications to this service so they pull that connection string from there, and the only thing that you have to do is the add connectivity to that application configuration service. From that point onward, you're free to put whatever properties you want of your application with an app configuration, especially the ones like in this example that are being shared across multiple services, like storage keys. You can put those here and also grab them from the single place. It is then up to you to decide how many of those settings you want to centralize and how many of those you want to save on the specific APIs and applications. If you would ask yourself a question now, should I use this or a key vault to store my highly sensitive information, then the answer would be use both. Because with an app configuration there's a specific integration allowing you to integrate with key vault, in which case your highly sensitive information is still stored within key vault, whereas app configuration has only references to the key vault, so that your application will be still connecting to the key vault, although in this case it will pick up the URL for the key vault secret from the app configuration service. And lastly, one of the best things about using app configuration is its event integration with Event Grid, so that you can actually build reactive applications that instantly react to changes. So whenever you change configuration in app configuration, all your application can subscribe to Event Grid events and instantly be notified whenever something was changed, and immediately act on this information so that they don't fail whenever you change some keys or configurations. And the typical scenarios that you would want to use app configuration are pretty much any kind of scenarios around web development, being microservice, serverless, or any kind of event-driven application. You can even integrate your app configuration with continuous deployment pipelines. So as you see, the range of scenarios is pretty wide for this one. Some of the key benefits that you get from using this service is, for instance, a quick setup. Within just 5 minutes, you can actually get the service running and integrated within your application. You can tag your configuration entries with labels for some logical separation. You can review over time your settings. You have feature flag management UI. You have additional configuration comparisons, so you can compare between such services what is the configuration on your app configuration and on the other services. And when it comes to security, you have integration with managed identities, data encryption at rest and in transit, and those key vault references that I was talking about. And as you see, quite few features for such a small service. We can now go to demos. The demos for today are, first of all, how can you create configuration service in Azure Portal. Then we're gonna manage some of the configuration for our application. There will be 2 demos using desktop application with .NET Core and web applications also using .NET Core. And lastly, I will show you how can you use Event Grid to react to changes in your configuration on the app configuration service. So let's go to the Azure portal, go to the menu, click Create a Resource and type App Configuration. Search it in the marketplace, you will find App Configuration by Microsoft, hit Create and give it a name. I'm gonna call mine AM Demo. I'm gonna select my subscription. As you see, AM Demo is currently in use, so I'm gonna call it AM Demo 01. This one seems to be free. Select the resource group, I'm gonna create new one. Select West Europe in this case. Select the pricing tier, the free one, and hit Create. After about 30 seconds, our service was provisioned, so let's hit Go to the resource, and this is what you're being presented whenever you provision a fresh app configuration service. From the most important information is the endpoint. That's why we had to pick a unique name, because this is a URL amdemo01 azconfig.io. The SKU is currently free, and those are pretty much the only relevant information on the screen. You can also use the next steps here to guide you through whatever is possible, and those are the three most important options. You can also find them on the left hand side on the blades: Configuration Explorer, Feature Manager, Import Export. You have also Quick Start, so if you're starting with some Java, .NET, .NET Framework, ASP.NET, Azure Functions, or whatever other language you're using, use those Quick Starts to get samples and the sample code, how to get integrated in just a couple of minutes. You can submit the feedback if you want. So how do you manage the configuration for the app configuration? It's very simple. You actually go to Configuration Explorer, and here you hit on Create and create either key value, so this is the secret that will be stored on this app configuration, or you hit a key vault reference, which means this app configuration will only hold an address to the secret in a key vault and nothing else. So let's hit key value and create a small demo information. So the key will be called demo and the value will be 123. Hit apply, and that's it. This is how you manage the keys from the portal. As you see, it's hidden value by default, although it's not a security feature, it's just, from the presentation purposes, you can always edit and view the values here. If you hit on edit, as you see, you can change the value, you can no longer change the name. So you can delete this key, but you cannot change the key value. You can close this blade, or you simply can hit here on show values to see the values in the portal. One important thing is that you can actually add multiple of the same key, because this is not a unique field. If you add a new key, call it also demo, apply value 1, 2, 3, 4, but this one maybe give a label development and hit apply. Right now you have one key, two values and different labels, and then you can filter by labels on the top to see different keys with different labels. Let's hit refresh, you can expand and see both of them in here. And the feature management works in a very similar way. Inside of the feature management blade, you hit add to create new feature flag. You can disable it or enable it at the very beginning, so let's call it demo flag. You can apply the label if you want, and if you enable this, you can add a filter to define what are the criteria on whenever this will be applied. As I said, this can be percentage, so let's say 50% of your users will get this feature on and 50 won't. So let's remove that filter for now, leave it as on, hit apply. And right now, as you see, we have another setting called demo flag, the same label as previously, development, and a state on and off. You can very easily switch it on and off whenever you want to test and apply this to your environment. And if you go back to your configuration manager, you're gonna notice there's a new key, because that key is also a setting and it's treated the same way, except the difference is that in this one, the content is simple JSON. And this JSON is understood by the SDKs if you're using SDKs for app configuration, allowing you very easily to enable and disable those configurations. Additionally, you have blade to restore the previous settings in a history. You have the blade to compare with another services for the configurations, so you can compare multiple app configuration services to each other and see what are the differences between the keys of those specific services. And lastly, you have import export, so you can very easily export the entire configuration or import it from other services like app services or simple configuration file from JSON. So it's very easy to migrate existing solutions to this service. And inside of export, you can target also a configuration file, hit export, and get this small JSON file with the configuration exported. So as you see, it's pretty easy. So right now, if we know how to manage this from the portal, how about we develop a very small application that takes advantage of this service? For this demo, I will be using .NET Core, within Visual Studio Code. And pretty much the same as with any demo that I do, I prepare some scripts for you that you can follow. If you want to get the link, there will be always in the video description. So let's start from setup. Inside of the setup, the first thing we need to do is create new app configuration. The good practice is to separate those by colons, so maybe a name of the application, whatever you're referencing like a setting, and what would be the key that you want to reference it by, for instance, message. So let's go to our app configuration, go to configuration manage. Let's add a new key value. Let's call that key test app setting message, and let's paste that value there. This is the first thing that we need to do. Right now we have the new setting saved. Second thing that we need to do is create new project. So the first one is the console application. So I'm gonna use .NET new console to create new console application. And as you see, this is the pretty much standard console application. The next thing we need to do is add the package from Microsoft Extension Configuration, Azure App Configuration. So let's add that package. And next, run the .NET restore to add this package to our project. Once we're done, we're pretty much good to go. So the next thing we need to do is to create an environment variable to get the connection string to our app configuration, because the console application needs to somehow to connect to Azure to this service. You can use CLI, PowerShell, or macOS commands. I use the PowerShell in this case because this is my PowerShell window, and I need to apply environment variable connection string. And to get that connection string, you go back to Azure portal, go to access keys. Here you hit on the show values, and you have two connection strings, the primary and secondary one. I'm gonna use primary in this case. Let's copy that. Let's go back to the console. Let's remove this part. Let's paste it in and hit enter. Right now we have environment variable with the connection string. So the last thing we need to do is the setup program CS, and I have the code for that in here. First of all, add usings on the top of the program so that our configuration and Azure App Configuration classes are available. And then next, simply replace the main of the class with the code that I provided. So let's look what is happening here. First of all, you're creating a configuration builder, a grabbing environment variable by the name of connection string. This is the one that we just set up, and then building that using the configuration builder. If this worked, we can reference this test app settings message from within our application. If you remember, this is the one. If it works, we should get that message from the app configuration. If it wouldn't, we would get the message hello world. So let's try to run it. .NET build and then .NET run. And the message is data from Azure App Configuration. As you see, it worked perfectly. And this is how easy you can actually integrate within your desktop application with your Azure App Configuration. So maybe let's try an MVC web application demo. So let's remove everything from this folder. Let's close everything here. And let's initialize the new project. Again, I set up everything for you, so you have the setup. First of all, we're gonna need 4 properties. We already have one set up, so let's add 3 more. The font color. So let's go back to our service, create new key value reference. Make it black, so the font color of our application will be black. The next thing that you need to set up is the font size. So let's add the new key value pair, and the font size I remember was 24. Let's add it. And the last one is the background color, which is white. So let's add the background color setting and let's make it white. Let's hit apply. So we have our 4 settings for our application set up. The next thing we need to do is create new application, add pretty much the same package and restore the packages. So I'm gonna copy all the 3 commands. So I'm gonna paste them. And after we're done, we're ready to go. In this example, instead of using environment variables, I'm gonna use .NET secrets. And to set up secrets, you need to add this specific line to your CS project file. And you need to add it within the property group. This is the secrets ID. This ID can be pretty much anything, so feel free to randomize it if you want. Remember to save the file. And once you do it, grab this .NET user secret set, paste it into the PowerShell, and again you need to provide the connection string. I need to do it again, even though I did it because I'm using different way to store the keys. So let's show the values, let's copy the connection string, and let's replace that. Let's paste it in, and let's press enter. Right now we have the saved credentials within .NET. So we can now use it. So the next step what we need to do right now is set up the files that I prepared. Let's start with the program CS. As always, we need to add usings. So let's go to program CS, add the usings so that the configuration is available for us. The next thing we need to do is add this new initializer. So let's scroll here and replace the current one with the one that I provided. Once this is done, you can actually save this file as well. And the next step that we need to do will be within the views. But remember, the most important stuff here is that you're referencing this connection string that is available for your application and nothing else, because from this point onward, you will be able to actually reference your config within the code. And let's see how to do that. So the next thing we need to do is go to the views home index HTML and grab this HTML there. So go to views, home, index. This is our default view. So in here, we're again using Microsoft Extension Configuration Package and injecting the configuration of our application so that we can reference our properties. And as you see, this is the test app settings, background color, and font size, which we're injecting within the style sheet of our page and then displaying the message on the screen. So let's save that. And let's do the same with the layout, except in layout, I didn't actually apply anything there. What I did is simply removed everything, so we did that only we get the message that I provided and nothing else. So it's just clean template. Once this is done, you can actually run .NET build and then .NET run. Once the application is running, you can reach it on localhost. So let's just click it. And as you see, data from Azure App Configuration. And the interesting part here is that if I would change the keys, if I would go to the configuration manager of application and hit on the background color, hit edit, and change the color of the background to blue, maybe change the font size to 36, the font color to white, and the message add edited. As you see, I pretty much changed all the properties that I had available. But if I go to our application and refresh it, nothing changed because our application already initialized using those variables. So out of the box, you're not getting this new version running until you actually restart the application. So let's do that. Let's restart the application, hit .NET Run, and again open the local host. And as you see, it picked up all the changed values, even the slightest changes. There are ways to implement dynamic change of the configuration, either through refreshes, so periodic refreshes and caching of your configuration, so that whenever application cache would expire, it would reach again to configuration service to grab the latest value, or using event grid, which I will show you in a second. But for now, that's it when it comes to MVC. This is how easy you can actually use the configurations and implement it within your MVC applications. So how do you react to changes of the app configuration? As I said, one of the ways is refresher, but refresher pretty much has this advantage that it will check it periodically. If you're gonna find this moment between the refresh time and the cache expiration, then make sure that your application will not fail with an error. Alright, so the last one is the demo with the event grid. To get this demo working, remember to have event grid registered, and to find that, type subs to find your subscription, open your subscription, go down to the resource providers blade, and within resource providers type event grid, because you need to make sure that event grid is enabled on your subscription. Otherwise, whenever you subscribe to event, you're just simply not gonna get any. But it will not throw an error, so it's very important to remember to check whenever this is registered. And the easiest demo to do that, I think, is with the logic apps, because logic apps very easily register for the event grid events visually, and you don't really have to invest time for development. So let's create new logic app. Let's hit create, select our resource group, give it a name. I'm gonna call it app config event, make it in West Europe, and hit review and create. Once it is done, go to the resource, and the designer will be instantly opened. As always, I start from the blank logic app. And what I want to do is start from the event grid. So I type event grid in a search to find event grid connector. Let's select it. When the resource event occurs, let's select our account directory and sign in using my own account. For the production use case, you would want to use service principal, but for the demo, this is fine using my own account. Let's select the subscription, select the resource type. In this case, it's Microsoft App Configuration Stores. Select the resource name, AMDemo01. And what kind of events do you want to register for this resource? In our case, we have two options. We have key value deleted or key value modified. So let's subscribe for the modifications and let's save it. I don't think we actually need to do anything else right now. So let's go back to the home screen of our Logic app. Let's actually minimize this to open another Azure portal in which we're gonna change some of the properties on our app configuration, and we're gonna see how it changes on the Logic app. So let's go to the app configuration, go to our service, go to Configuration Explorer, and let's change that background color that we did previously. So let's hit edit here, and let's change from blue to red. Let's maybe change another property, font size back to 24, and hit apply. If everything works fine, if we go back to the Logic app, we're gonna see two events already running. You just need to refresh to see the current history. As you see, it instantly reacted, and within milliseconds, it prompted what was happening. You can actually click on that to see what was sent within the event. If you open this, you're gonna see that within the event, it was sent by the key value modified event type, and inside of the event, you can actually see what key was changed, when, what is the subject of the message, and then your application can know that it should pull the metadata and the configuration data again to be sure it's staying up to date. This is how easy it is to integrate with Event Grid within your application, and you can even supply your own RESTful endpoint for your web application so that your web application will be instantly notified whenever there are changes in the configuration, and you can very nicely act on this information. And this is not where it stops with app configuration. You definitely should explore all the additional options like key vault integration, refreshes, event-based integrations, or many more scenarios that you can implement with app configuration. But that's it for today. If you liked the video, hit thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and definitely see you next time.